of birth or year of death, the dash in between. It's that dash, you know, that a funeral is it's a lot in that dash. I felt like had been kind of born to do this, to promote a good death, to help people take death back in their control as a community, as a family, and also about facing your own death, contemplating it, and the freedom it allows you to live when you really take in that you have to wake up every day and think, I'm awake, I'm alive, I'm so grateful, what a gift. People are frightened to deal with the body, the funeral. When someone's dying, they're very much like, we have to get them to hospital, you know, they need medicines, they need to be made comfortable. And I want to remind people that you can still have that comfort and medication and medical support at home. It's where a good death can be. I like to try and give people some confidence and some tools, some support and love to enable them to have a death at home and be confident about it being a good death. And it's possible. I've had quite a few people ring and say, could we have some support with my dying relative? Can you come and give us some advice, emotional advice, practical advice, you know, gathering a network around that family of people to change the sheets, to cook some food, to walk the dog, to tidy the house, to get some shopping in, creating a network that means that you can create a good death. If it's done well, the comfort that it brings and the way that it allows that family to grieve is so much healthier. The more we hide away from death, the more we hand it over to other people, the less we don't deal with it so well. And look at the other community, like the Irish community. They have the body at home, the children are there, they understand death, it's part of their life from very young, they're not frightened of it. I do believe in energy, and I believe our energy is never ever gone. It will move and change into something else, not necessarily reincarnation into another person or animal, but this energy will always be somewhere. It's gone back into our earth and it'll be around us. Some people believe in something because they're frightened, because they want to believe there's something else. They can't possibly imagine having a meaningful, long life with nothing at the end. Some people believe in it for fear. I don't have a fear of it being over. I think it makes me more determined to make this life I'm in absolute the best and giving service. I believe that we're all here to give what we can, to give service, to give love. And as long as I fulfill that through my whole life, that is my life well lived. People remember, isn't it, how you make them feel, other than what you've said or done. And if you can just love and be caring, they might be inspired to behave the same and carry that legacy of love. I'm never going to be able to understand everything about the world and the universe. I don't want to try, but you just do. You do your bit. Sometimes it's hard to pack in a life in a half an hour funeral. So we try here to be innovative in the way that we create ceremonies that are unique and personal. It's been quite traditional to do a one-size-fits-all funeral in this country, very Victorian, and I think we're trying really hard to give people the confidence to create something really unique and personal. An afternoon in a barn with it can be whatever you want it to be. And I like that development has come even quicker since COVID. I think people thought, actually, we don't have to do the normal thing. We can maybe be creative about how we plan a funeral. With that gardener who's done those, she will go with the family and make tributes from friends, neighbours' gardens, get the grandchildren, children, and she'll do a picking ceremony where they'll choose and pick what it is they'd like to make. And that kind of hands-on participation, rather than, oh no, we're protecting the children, it's too upsetting for them, we can't have them here. You know, they should see you cry, they should understand emotion, that it's okay, it's safe to let it out. You need to see them looking like they've died. That natural, physical change to their appearance, because it's part of us understanding. Don't try and make them look alive, they're not alive, they died. It's not healthy. When people die at home, they ring me and they say, oh, can you come and get mum? I said, that's fine. Do you want to take a bit of time? You know, maybe just have a couple of hours, just sit with her if she's peaceful, be with her. And we went to a call last night and they said, actually, we will have some time. When we got there, they'd opened a bottle of wine. They were all sat on her bed, laughing about memories. And they'd had a couple of glasses and they were just filling the room like she was there with joy and memories. And it was beautiful. You wouldn't have probably thought to have done that if you hadn't said, just have some time. And they said it was the best thing to process, to get used to see her body start to slowly change and just take that all in, take time. Some changes are almost immediate and some changes actually start to happen before you've died because the body is breaking down slowly. I wouldn't say they're significant for 24 hours. Within 2 hours you'll see some small changes, but they're very gradual and they're not sudden. We attend lots of sudden deaths. I can sense some anguish. And then people who've passed away at home in their own surroundings, where they've had time to say their goodbye. They look peaceful. You can feel like there's no unfinished business. They've been able to nature's sort of done as it should. But sudden deaths, we deal a lot with suicides, and that's the one that is hard. And we're a close team, we're a family, so we talk and share. But that's the one most I struggle with. Unnecessary death. I find it can be quite preventable. Our mental health system is in crisis and I'm seeing the results of that crisis. If I can be of service to that family, to be comfort, to be strong, to be there for them, that's my role in that situation. But I will hold some quiet time for myself after those calls. I think years of dealing with them, you become better at dealing with the type of grief that comes with suicide is completely unique. It's quite complex. I mean, it's natural that the person closer to them, they are going to feel like, what could I have done? I should have done, I should have known. About how if it's cancer and they fought hard, like they're kind of a hero. But I think what I try and get my families to do is to make peace with it. It was that person who's died, it was their decision. Even if you might have done something differently, at the end of the day, it was their action. And looking back and saying, what if, it may be useful to reflect at times, but actually it's not changing the outcome. So I try and give them encouragement to process and make peace with that it was not their decision, it was their loved one's decision, it was theirs and theirs alone. Maybe there could have been more done, but it hasn't. It won't change. You have to just learn to make peace with it. And often people who do commit suicide are in such a frame of mind, they are unable to understand the impact it has on those around them. They say, they mustn't have loved me enough. I'm angry. I wasn't enough for them to stay alive. And I try and get them to understand that when you're in that frame of mind, I haven't been, luckily, but when you are, I believe that you're not able to think in that way. You're trapped in the darkness of those thoughts. I try and say to the families, they weren't thinking like you. They were thinking really differently in a way that you might not ever be able to understand. But it wasn't ever done in their minds to make you suffer. It was done with the genuine feeling of they were going to be relieving you by dying. We should have the right to choose if we wish to die for whatever reason. There's sometimes, my colleague's Samaritan trained, when they have a call if someone said, I want to take my life, you have to accept that person, it's not about trying to stop them, it's about just being there to allow them to hold space to talk if they want to. But do you know what they might want to just have someone on the phone so they're not alone when they're doing it. You have to accept some people are going to choose to do that, and you have to kind of make peace with that. There are some cases that I think I somehow sensed that was the person's choice, and it felt weirdly like right. I felt some sense of peace around the event, and I felt like it was right for them. There are some cases that I think it's been through lack of medical support, and that it could have been prevented. So they're not all horrible, but there are some that are very challenging. The reason that people don't want to do something too personal here is fear of what others might think. You can't do that. And what would Auntie Nora, what would everyone think? My advice would be, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. If that person knew and loved that person that's died, they would understand why those choices have been made for that person that they loved. And they wouldn't judge. They wouldn't go, wouldn't have done that. Just think about if the person who's died was sat in front of you, if they would like it and would enjoy it and it celebrates them, do it. It doesn't matter if other people aren't, if it's against tradition or it's a bit unusual.
Yeah.
Every family needs something different from us, from me. Some need half an hour of my time in there. They're just like, yeah, we're just, nothing else to do. We're just simple. Others I speak to 2 hours every day for 3 weeks, and others I keep in contact with. So every family needs something different from me in order for me to create something different for them. There's no one size fits all, and there shouldn't be a one size fits all. I'm very lucky to do what I do. Incredibly lucky. Every day I wake up and I think I'm just so lucky to have this role. Privileged. Life of service is what makes it feel good in here, And dogs, and lots of dogs.
And lots of dogs.
The more dogs that everyone goes, can I bring our dog to the funeral? Bring all the dogs to the funeral. Bring as many dogs as you want. I'm obsessed with them. Utterly obsessed. Yeah. And I wouldn't want to live forever. I've never had a single ghostly experience in 3 years. Never one. But I'm open, I suppose.